What do you think of when you hear a century, 100 years? Well, let's think for a time about our little town and 100 years of its history, with emphasis on its educational system. In 1938, the Commonwealth passed a law to establish a system of public schools, and 10 years later, in 1948, Pike County voted a school tax. T.W. Oliver, longtime superintendent of Pikeville City Schools, would become very upset when his teachers would anticipate the weekend. He would invariably admonish them and add, "I can't wait for Monday to come so I can fight ignorance." And there was certainly ignorance to fight, because the educational level in this area was once quite low. At this time, there was a scattering of one-room schools under the direction of teachers who probably had 8 years of schooling and then passed a state law to qualify to teach. In Pikeville, there was a beautiful little 4-room brick building which housed a subscription school, which parents paid to have teachers such as P.P. Dameron and J.M. Riddle instruct their children. There were 2 schools that offered instruction in the upper grades, 9 through 12. One of these was the Pikeville Collegiate Institute in the building which now serves as our town hall, and the other is the Matthew T. Scott Academy of Phelps, neither of which was a public school, so the tuition restricted enrollment. The approximately 500 people who lived in Pikeville had virtually no contact with other areas. Traveling in and out of Pike County was by horse, wagon, or steamboat. But when the first passenger train came up the valley in 1905, came new ideas and a desire to move forward. In 1911, the far-sighted men of the school boards of the city and county cooperated to plan and build a high school, which they called the Pikeville and Pike County High School, and which would later be described by a state school superintendent as, quote, the finest high school in the state, end of quote. After much discussion, the boards decided to put the building on the site of the little subscription school on 4th Street. As the construction went on, classes were held in churches, lodge halls, and even in some of the teachers' homes. Finally, in September 1915, the building was completed, and the school term opened with approximately 150 students and 9 teachers and administrators. The top floor housed the high school and a crude auditorium. The first floor was for the elementary students, and the gym and restrooms were in the basement. Restrooms, don't you know that was a wonder in 1915. The gym was the site of the games of the first basketball team, 1916 and 1917. Their uniforms deny the meaning of the word uniform, and I wonder if this is the whole team. The very severe-looking gentleman is Tobias Kinder, the first superintendent at Pikeville High School, whose term was from 1911 through 1921. A letter from Dr. Leon Childers, who taught at PHS to earn money to continue his education in dental school, tells us that although the basement gym was regulation size, the ceiling was quite low. But since all the shots were banked against the backboard, this was no problem. He said, too, that there were benches on 2 sides of the court, but that the spectators had to stand during plays to get their feet off the playing floor. Classes were 45 minutes long, and among the many demanding subjects offered were geometry, advanced algebra, physics, 4 years of Latin, German, and rhetoric. Because classes had been held during the building construction, there was a senior class in 1916. However, there was only one graduate, Vernon Stump, who is shown here with Mr. Spears and Mr. Waddell as Randy Roberts presents him with his copy of the '76 Panther. Mr. Stump said that his graduation exercise was held at the Presbyterian Church and the entire student body attended. Dr. O.L. Milliken followed Mr. Kendrick as superintendent, and then, in 1922, a young man from Sturgis, Kentucky came to Pikeville to evaluate the summer school program. This remarkable man was Tybee William Oliver, a man of boundless energy and a tireless advocate for education. He received his undergraduate and master's degrees from the University of Chicago and a certificate of superintendency from Columbia University in New York. It was as if it were his destiny to come to this place and devote his life to the youth of Pikeville and Pike County. He began his tenure in 1922. He assembled a group of amazing instructors, had posters printed to be sent throughout the area, extolling the importance of education and urging attendance at Pikeville High School. He rode a horse up the hills and valleys to encourage teachers to continue their education and to encourage young folks to come to Pikeville to attend school to improve their lives. Here we see the first football team in 1925. This picture and others of the early football and basketball teams were given to the Maroon and White Room by Cassius "Cac" Hatcher, who attended PHS and after college returned to teach and coach here until 1944. According to Cac, this picture was made on the first day of practice. He said a cornfield was cleared and the uprights were erected, and they practiced. His comment was, "Boy, was it dusty." The organization of the football team was made possible because a very successful basketball team, which had advanced to the state tourney in 1924 and 1925, were invited by Alonzo Staggs to play in an invitational tournament in Chicago. The team voted to use the money collected for the trip to start a football team instead. Incidentally, the team's first game was with Logan, West Virginia, and Pikeville lost 71-0. Because the school population was growing and the basement was needed for classrooms, the board in 1925 constructed a white wooden gymnasium. The girls also had a basketball team. The last one was in 1930, and girls basketball was not revived until 1974-75, when a team was organized and coached by Carolyn Hall. Among the remarkable teachers that Mr. Oliver recruited, many of them spent most of their professional lives in this system. Miss Rebecca Lewis, Miss Patty Richmond, Miss Beulah Terhune, Sally Dotson, Mr. and Mrs. Lowe. John Lewis, a band director by way of Wales in Canada, trained a band that competed admirably at Council Bluffs, Iowa. One could complete the studies in Arthur Danberg's business department and step into a good job after graduation. Mr. Danberg also sponsored an award-winning mimeograph school newspaper beginning in 1926. Incidentally, while our school yearbook, started in 1930, has had only two names, the Black Diamond and the Panther, our newspapers have had at least 7 names. Due to increased enrollment, more classroom was needed. The elementary classes were moved into a new building next to the gym in 1926. And to accommodate students who came in from the county, the boards bought the Sowards house, which was next door to the high school building, and added a dorm in the back, which had 60 double bedrooms, 5 common rooms, and 5 bathrooms. The rent was $15 a month, and each girl was required to work an hour each day. The dorm was named Wright Hall to honor Fonzo Wright, who at the time was the county superintendent. A lot was purchased across the railroad with plans for a boys' dorm, but it was never constructed. In 1928, construction began on yet another building, this for elementary students, although later it was used for the junior high. This building, completed in 1929, held a 1,000-seat auditorium. The 1929 class was the first to graduate in this auditorium and the first to wear caps and gowns. The auditorium was named the Ramsey Auditorium to honor W.M. Ramsey, the chairman of the school board.